What do aliens have to do with Halloween?
Silence!
Quite a bit, actually. Welcome back again, folks. I'm Incubus, and I'll be your host for this video's trip down console memory lane. I've always found it strange that, of all of horror's litany of monsters, when it comes to October's holiday, aliens always get the shaft.
Damn right.
That theatric oversight is video games' opportunity, though. As you'll see from this top 5, there are some solid space horror offerings that are perfect for replay or first-time run-throughs. After all, isn't The Haunted House Among the Stars all the scarier when you're immersed in your isolated surrounding and no one can hear you scream? In my last episode, I gave my suggestions for my watch list of scary movies, so consider this part 2. For those that prefer their October traditions, less observative and more interactive, here is the Incubus Halloween playlist for survival horror games.
Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are.
At a time when names like Resident Evil and Silent Hill were losing their luster, this game came out of nowhere and helped to give survival horror a much-needed shot of adrenaline, with a dirty syringe. Capitalizing on the release window that I just blamed space horror films for never exploiting, this classic dropped in October of 2008. Playing as Isaac Clarke, wow, that's a more obscure two first-name combo than Percy Julian.
You don't even know who I am.
For an engineer, the task of exploring spooky decks and navigating blood-soaked corridors of a mining vessel, restoring systems to repair the ship, battling psychosis and paranoia while fending off necrotized space lobsters, that's just another day at the office. But bad plumbing? That ain't covered by union wages. Benefiting from previous zombie games and the Doom series, the host of monsters on display are as grisly as they are varied. They shoehorn a bunch of ham-fisted religious connotations and heavy-handed church jargon that last time I checked, I really gotta give props to the developers for going the distance to engross the gamers into the world by removing traditional video game indicators like health bars and heads-up displays from maximum player engagement. As terrifying as his oppressive location and grotesque aggressors are, the secrets the player uncovers regarding illegal mining operations on a world classified off-limits are equally as harrowing. It's that time-honored tradition of digging into places where you were not meant to be, only to find something horrendous lying in wait. It serves as a harsh reminder of that most integral key to survival. When faced with the viral undead, able to sprint like Olympic athletes somehow, don't skip leg day. Making a pit stop to a backwater mud bowl classified as Earth to gas up the tank, an alien spaceship touches down on Oklahoma to consume all matter, both inanimate and organic. Unleaded, of course. The problem is the beam-up includes our hero, Tommy, his girlfriend, and his grandfather. If it isn't already obvious, this game will be our classic alien abduction for the evening. Tommy's Cherokee heritage gives him an upper hand, allowing his spirit to revive him from certain death, walk through walls, commune with the dead, and learn pottery with Demi Moore. What an unfair advantage. The hard choice he has to make teaches him the harsh reality that you can't save everyone. As dreadful as it is to learn that this vessel is actually alive, what is more perilous is the intention this starship has for the life forms it has collected across the many worlds it has visited. Innovative game mechanics and mind-bending level design physics make this cult classic worth the price of admission. Changing the gravity of an entire room to kick off a gunfight using a living firearm before escaping through a portal, and using a spirit bow bestowed upon you by your relative in the land of the dead, combined for an unconventional experience that isn't your average alien encounter. Despite an FPS title, given the time of year and its alien enemies, I'm sure you won't have any reservations with this game. Oh, yes. Sticking with 2006, you may find this game's inclusion on this list puzzling. Given the series' more action focus, I would ask that you give the first Gears of War a first look or another chance. Its environments are so bleak and demoralizing. The phrase "destroyed beauty" was the philosophy by its developers in crafting their setting, and that's just the surface locations. Apart from its scorched earth landscape, the way this game depicted its enemies was nothing short of nightmarish. The roving death cloud that was the predatory krill, swarming upon hapless cog soldiers, stepping out from the haven of the light and into the shadows for their waiting jaws. The mammoth Brumach, so lethal, so fearsome, your only chance of survival in the console versions was immediate escape. And then there's the Berserker. Believe me when I tell you that journeying the war-torn front lines of planet Sera makes for a tense sitting. When exploring abandoned factories, you can't tell where that ear-piercing shrieking is coming from, or from what. When you're scouring the underground cave system and confront all manner of horror that this world's hollows have vomited up. When enemies can come from any direction, even beneath your feet. If you can divorce yourself from the bro-shooter frat boy fanbase the series eventually occupied, I think you'll find you have a bona fide Halloween alien classic on your hands. We now shift gears to the 8th and current generation of consoles. That falling star you witnessed in 2013 was the gaming debacle that claimed itself to be the follow-up to James Cameron's Aliens burning up in our atmosphere before crash landing. Which is why, 18 months after that catastrophe, when Alien Isolation burst onto the scene and delivered a memorably haunting endurance test, it was such a breath of fresh air for the fanbase. The feasibility of the premise allows it to perfectly fit into the chronology, giving us another reason to revisit H.R. Giger's sexual nightmare, while keeping our characters unaware of its horror and unprepared. Amanda Ripley goes out in search of her mother to solve the 15-year mystery of her disappearance. What she finds instead is her acquaintance with an old friend of the family. Ditching the more pulse-pounding action aesthetic of the first film's sequel in favor of the first film's suspense, the added bonus of stealth was the key to this game's success. This story is not about pulse rifles or regenerating health. In fact, the reassurance normally attributed to the guns blazing approach would draw the attention of the monster, and only serve to serve you up to the Star Beast. The phrase cat and mouse game is one overly familiar expression. So instead, I will just illustrate that within this haunting ground turned hunting ground, you are not the hunter, you are the lamb. Much like how Dead Space was the heir apparent to scary games in the 7th hardware iteration, Alien Isolation was the crowning achievement of survival horror in the following home consoles generation. Both October releases, might I add. See folks, this is the Alien 3 we should have gotten. This game not only renewed faith in the series for video games that Aliens Colonial Marines nearly obliterated, but it stands as the greatest contribution to the franchise in any medium, all millennium. Yes, folks, that includes your precious Prometheus for all you Ridley squatters.
Oh, but Incubus, this isn't a traditional survival horror experience exposing players to isolated environments, tension, and fear of the unknown. It's more power fantasy than...
This sequel to 2016's exceptional first-person shooter picks up where its predecessor left off and brings the fight home to earth. Leaning into its Evil Dead inspiration, the gun porn and carnage on display go borderline Mortal Kombat with their absurdity to thrilling effect. Toasty! I'll be the first to admit, my initial reaction to the resource management was, I'm not digging this. With how chaotic events can become on-screen, especially so quickly, it felt like too much to juggle. However, that's the challenge. And once I got the hang of perform glory kills for villains to release health, chainsaw enemies so they'll drop ammo, shoulder cannon opponents to retrieve armor, I said to myself, yeah, I can dig it.
Sucker!
The gameplay is nothing short of addictive. There is nothing like, after 7 attempts at a stage, getting the ever-loving tar utterly kicked out of your soul by the onslaught of monsters, just to slam your fist on the table, grip the controller in your hand, and shout at the TV again, in equal parts irritation and exhilaration. It just shouldn't be this way.
This is wrong, you hear me? Wrong! This is... Wrong me, my brains are... Oh, it's... Oh!
What a rush!
The fact is, folks, I got a fever, and Doom Eternal's got my fix. As if the foreground action wasn't boner-inducing enough, the backdrops are knob-throbbing. The gothic cathedral of Doomslayers orbiting Fortress of Solitude, the airplane wearing a skyscraper as a helmet, battles frozen in time between UAC mechs and Hell Titans, levels made out of tissue fiber and bile. The best way I can describe this game, its predecessor, and the greater franchise is...
Ultra Nightmare!
Go away, Mortal Kombat Annihilation. Nobody likes you. You're like the Resident Evil movies compared to the RE games. I was gonna say, this game is like an electric guitar made out of a chainsaw. So turn up the amp, yank back on that starter rope, and let her rip.
Groovy.
Now then, will a System Shock game finally come out already? Seriously, you got a sequel and a remake in the works.
Take my money!
Alright gamers, you know the drill. The first week is up, the first full week of October is upon us. Feel free to chime in with your own Halloween favorite games, whether specific to the space theme or general survival horror.